Chapter 7. The Grand Alliance. Alita put on the headset while Jeremy helped the professor. They were in the chemistry lab and everything was ready for the video conference. Walter, Ulrich, Richard, and Eva were seated at the students' benches, at the back of the monitor, so as not to be seen by Dido. Alita and Hertz were sitting side by side at the teacher's desk. Jeremy and Alita had come prepared down to the last detail. They had checked that the Green Phoenix had no spy camera or microphone in the laboratory, and had then installed a cryptographic program onto the computer. Hertz and Alita both had a microphone to talk to Dido, while the others could hear their dialogue thanks to speakers. It's Thursday, 1 o'clock in the morning, Jeremy commented, looking at his watch. So in Washington it must be 7 in the afternoon, Wednesday, Alita concluded. Ulrich scratched his head, not really understanding. We've already studied time zones, Ulrich, the professor groaned. You should know how they work. The boy went as red as a tomato, and Jeremy took advantage of the pause to complete the final adjustments on the computer. We're ready, he said. Let's hope that Dido is already in her office. 3, 2, 1, call started. Alita concentrated on the blank screen. After several instants, the image of a woman appeared. She was around Hertz's age, with blonde hair and fine lips. Good morning, Dido, the professor coldly greeted. We are here with Walter Stern, who has explained to us how to get in contact with you. I'm also very pleased to see you again, Major Steinbeck, the woman said with a smile. How long has it been since we last met? 11 years? And that girl with you must be Harper's daughter. Strange that she's still young. She should be over 20 years old by now. Alita lowered her eyes, intimidated, but Hertz immediately intervened. We need to talk about some very serious matters, she said dryly. The professor quickly brought Dido up to speed with recent events, up until the father-son meeting at the Hermitage and the invasion of the factory by Mago's men. These children, she finally said, have proved themselves. They discovered the Oko and fought Xana all by themselves. But now this is different. We need your help against the terrorists. Are you thinking of military intervention? The Parisian region has too many citizens. It could be complicated. No soldiers, Alita interrupted, leaning towards the screen. We want a peaceful solution. Listen, ma'am. My friends and I know the virtual worlds by heart, and we're convinced that it's possible to stop the Green Phoenix through the Oko. But to succeed, we'll need your cooperation. Walter's appearance in the Hermitage damaged the Axis scanner, blocking 2 of our friends in an isolated digital environment, my father's journal. We can't use the scanners at the factory, as they're currently out of reach, and let's not even think about the trinkets in Brussels. They're much too old for... Ah, yes, Brussels. You do realize you trespassed on government property, right, children? You could end up in prison. What we want, Alita continued, not allowing herself to be intimidated, is access to the information about the connection to the First City. That way we can connect ourselves directly to the replica, then the scanners, which we intend to build, without needing to go to Brussels. That won't be a problem, Dido nodded. What else? Alita smiled. Professor Hertz here has a dossier full of codes that we haven't managed to decipher. The professor jumped in her seat, but Alita continued without pausing. If we find out what they're for... I know what the codes are for, Hertz interrupted. Waldo and I prepared them together not long ago. It's the code down, the definitive weapon to destroy the Oko and the First City once and for all. At that moment, Eva Skinner leapt up and ran out of the laboratory. The girl began to move through the deserted hallway in huge strides. Walk to calm down, another human habit. She really had to do something to resolve this delicate situation. At that moment, Xana hated himself for not succeeding in possessing Professor Hertz. So these mysterious codes were to create a weapon capable of destroying the Oko. In behaving like this, he ran the risk of being discovered, but he couldn't contain his rage. Destroying the virtual world meant destroying him as well, and he could not allow that. The children then came out of the laboratory. Jeremy and Alita were holding hands and smiling. I'm sorry if I interrupted you, Eva said, lowering her head. I didn't want to bother you, but it's just that I needed to go to the bathroom. No problem, Alita responded. The negotiations went very well. Dido was ready to give us a hand. As long as the Green Phoenix are in town, we'll be allied with the men in black. That's correct, Jeremy added. Now, I also have the access codes to the First City. As soon as we build a new scanner, you can go there and get Yumi and Odd out of the mirror. And the code down? Eva asked. Hertz exited the laboratory adjusting her lab coat. She seemed very exhausted. It's a long story, kids, she commented. We'll talk about it tomorrow. For the moment, it's time for bed. Everyone considered this a good idea, and Eva was forced to give in. She had to wait longer. Plus, the prospect of entering the First City was more than sufficient to guarantee her a good night's sleep. But you don't sleep. You're an artificial intelligence, Xana said to himself. It was strange that, from time to time, he had to remind himself of something so basic. Professor Hopper was in the Hermitage's attic. In reality, Yumi was also there in a corner, hidden there with Odd, still unconscious, but the man couldn't see them anyway. The mirror had brought the girl further forward in time, and now she found herself on the 3rd of June, 1994. It was the afternoon, and the warm lights of summer entered through the window. The attic was jam-packed with books and papers. Hopper was hunched over a large desk, scrawling notes and grumbling to himself. At a certain point, he stood up and violently slammed his palm into the table. "It doesn't work," he cried. "The code down is still incomplete. Too many variables are getting away from me." He began to pace back and forth across the attic. He arrived at the window, from which Kedik Academy's park could be seen, and then retraced his steps to almost trample Yumi seated on the floor, head between her knees. "I need space on my disk to register the backup. Too much space, darn it! Where am I going to find such a powerful memory system? It would need to be able to conserve my data for a very long time." The professor started to walk again. Yumi turned her gaze from him to study the navigation system control box. She had escaped Xana's claws for the moment, but she wasn't sure that she was totally safe. Maybe Xana really was able to use Lyoko inside the mirror to enter the Lyoko of the present. What had he said about the box? It was an interface that allowed one to interact with the virtual world, and all he had needed was the power of his own thoughts in order to directly use machines. Yumi knew that she had to warn the others, to get back in contact with reality, but she didn't know how to do it. She pressed her ear as if she were wearing an earpiece that didn't really exist. "Jeremy?" she murmured. "Can you hear me? Anyone?" "I'm here," Lita's voice responded. Yumi leapt to her feet, looking all around her like mad, and saw her friend enter the attic. She was dressed in her usual dungarees, her hair cut short and wearing a magnificent smile on her face. Yumi ran towards her, brimming with happiness, and wrapped her arms around her. It was like trying to grab air. She passed straight through her, lost her balance, and fell to the floor. She whipped around and saw the girl greet her father by kissing him on the cheek. Oh no, it wasn't the real Aelita. It was just a recording in the mirror, just like Hopper. "Is everything going well, Daddy?" the young girl asked. "No, not at all. There's a problem in my program that I can't isolate. What's more, I have disk space problems and—" "Can you tell me what's going on?" Aelita interrupted, observing him. "Susan told me that Walter fired everyone. The Ishiyamas, Robert De La Robbia, Michael." All of a sudden, Yumi was paying strict attention. Did she say Ishiyama? Was Aelita talking about her parents? "You need to trust me, my dear." "Oh, that goes without saying. But aside from that, can I help you with anything?" Hopper observed her intensely. "Perhaps you can, but I don't know if it's a good idea. I mean, I don't know what kind of effect it will have on you." Aelita gave him another kiss. "If you need me, you can count on me, Daddy, no matter the cost." "Okay, maybe it can work," Hopper said with a smile. Jeremy cleaned his greasy hands by briskly rubbing them against his jeans and placed the screwdriver on the floor. He and Professor Hopper were in the secret room in the Hermitage. They had got up very early in the morning and had come to the chalet together to immediately set to work on the scanner. It was a Thursday and Jeremy needed to be in class, but Hertz had spoken to the principal, so he and his friends had been excused from classes for 2 days with the excuse of helping the professor organize the science textbooks in the laboratory. The teen got out of the column and the professor gave him a glass of cold tea that he downed in one gulp. He wasn't used to physical work and was drenched in sweat. He had changed the fuses, but it hadn't been enough. Something mechanical had broken in the arm of the transformer, and, as if that wasn't enough, the motherboard had been toasted. When the current spiked, the scanner was just working at full power, and the unexpected interruption had destroyed a delicate component. Hertz attentively listened to his technical explanations, and Jeremy smiled. It was very nice to be able to talk to the professor on equal terms. He finally faced someone who truly understood the technological problems he normally had to resolve alone. "Maybe with the right equipment I could repair the arm," he finally added. "But not the motherboard," Hertz completed his sentence for him. "We need to replace it completely." "If we can reach the old factory on the island, I could possibly find some replacement pieces Hopper abandoned there, but with the Green Phoenix terrorists around, it's much too dangerous. On and Yumi run the risk of being imprisoned in the mirror forever. Unless," the professor began to say as her mouth curled into a cunning smile, "we go to see the creators of the scanner directly." "Exactly. It's a shame Professor Hopper isn't here with us. If he were, the problem would be solved by now." "Jeremy Belpaw, may I remind you that I am your teacher? You need to trust me. And what's more, I never said that Hopper was the one who constructed the logic circuits in the scanners." "If that's the case, then who did? You?" "No, someone you know very well, your father, with Mr. Ishiyama. We could get them here and then use my memory snatching machine to give them their memories back." Ulrich opened his eyes and, for a moment, had the impression of not having slept at all. He looked around him, disoriented. He was still in his room in the Kedik dormitories. On the other hand, Odd wasn't the one in the bed opposite him, but rather an adult man still dressed in suit and tie. His father. After the conversation with Dido, they were all too tired to think about another solution, so Hertz suggested that he sleep in the dormitories with his son. Ulrich shook his head. A traitor and the son of a traitor. What a great duo. The teen got out of bed, slipped his feet into a pair of slippers, and glanced at the alarm clock. It was already 10 o'clock in the morning. He hadn't even heard the bell signaling students to go to class. He decided he should go see if Jeremy and the others were already up. "Son," Walter murmured. "Yes? You're already up? I'm hungry. It's past breakfast time." His father sat up on the bed. His dark suit had been completely crinkled during the night, and a short and shaggy beard had appeared on the man's cheeks. "I'm sorry." "Why are you telling me you're sorry?" Ulrich rattled, giving him a perplexed look. "For what I did to you and your mother. I don't know if I've ever been a good father, and I'm sorry for that. Come on," the young boy interrupted, forcing a smile. "It's not that bad." "That's not true, but I want to tell you that I'm very angry at myself. I played a very dangerous game, and I lost everything. I had the opportunity to change my life after they erased my memory, compensate in some way for what I had done, and instead of that, I continued to open the old wounds of my errors. During all that time, I distanced you from me without listening or really talking to you. I was even close to losing your mother's love. But when I saw you in the Hermitage yesterday, I finally understood everything. I feel that I've changed, and now I can make up for all the bad I've caused, being with you and helping Aelita." Walter stopped, and for the first time since he had begun speaking, he looked Ulrich in the eyes. Ulrich tried to smile back. "What do you say? Are you willing to give me another chance?" The young man approached him, holding out his hand. We have a lot to work on, and it will be very dangerous. We're really going to need you to make it out of all of this." Father and son exchanged a strong handshake. "Do you have a moment?" Jeremy asked. Aelita was in Professor Hertz's office. She retrieved the dossier of codes that they hadn't yet managed to make sense of and, perched on a tower of magazines, was contemplating the sheaf of papers in her hands without blinking. She didn't even raise her head to greet Jeremy when he sat beside her. He happily explained to her that Hertz telephoned everyone's parents. Given that Jeremy's lived in a city far away, the meeting would take place the following day. When they arrive, the professor will bring back their memories and put them to work together on the scanner. At first, the principal had some objections, especially about the idea of giving the children 2 days of holiday, but in the end, Hertz managed to win him over. Yumi and Odd were still prisoners in the virtual world, and they had a lot of work ahead of them. "We've almost done it," Jeremy concluded, giving his friend a warm smile. "Soon, you'll also be able to enter the mirror." Aelita seemed pensive, completely absorbed in the papers. "Hey, are you listening?" "I still can't understand it," the girl murmured. "This program, it's incomplete. That's why Hertz never used it until now. It's missing some chunks." Jeremy leaned in to look at the pages. Indeed, Aelita could have been right, but to be sure, they had to thoroughly study these pages and do some simulations on the computer. "Well," he said, "it seems obvious that it's missing some parts. We also have to take Richard's palm computer into account, and there's also the mirror as well, and the first city. It's likely that your father dispersed several fragments of the program throughout the various virtual worlds." Aelita shook her head. She picked up another sheaf of papers from the floor. "Here, Richard printed me the codes that appeared on this palm computer. If you look at them carefully, you can see that they have nothing to do with the code down. It's like a completely different program." The girl smiled. There was something more. "In my memories, I had a sort of flashback, a fragment in which I seemed to be in the Hermitage with my father, and he asked me to help him do something important. But I can't remember what it was." "Well," Jeremy consoled her, "I wouldn't worry about that if I were you. Since you lost your memory during the Christmas holidays, your memories have been a confused mess, but you reclaim more each day that passes." "This is different," Aelita retorted, shaking her head, "even if I can't remember why."